Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here today with the lovely Anne from Nuclear Blast. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's finally nice to be able to talk to you. I mean, we always exchange emails and messages, but it's finally nice to be able to sit down and talk face to face.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled because it really feels like I'm as if I'm on my favorite TV show here. So thanks for having me. You're always just that little guy that I see popping up on my Facebook and YouTube, and it's great.
Well, it's nice that and it's nice that you say that, and I really appreciate you taking the time today to sit down with me and just chat about your work and everything that you do, because I think it's really interesting. And for fans of music and people who buy metal music, it's perhaps interesting to know a little bit of what goes behind the scenes and what happens, in the places that people don't necessarily have access to.
Sure.
So let me start off by asking you this. How did you get involved in the music business?
It happened a bit by accident, actually. I was also a journalist. I wrote for several magazines, Germany's Legacy, for example, but I also had my little online magazine. And I've just been doing interviews every now and then, mainly with Nuclear Blast's artists, because that worked perfectly at the time. And they also have most of my favorite bands, to be honest. So I've always been a bit clingy there. But I've been doing interviews for years and for years. And remember one day I was invited to a listening session of Sabaton. So I went to Donsdorf there. Back then I was still living in the north of Germany, so it was about 6 hours of drive. But I was so excited just to meet the band and do the interview there. And I had previously spoken to Marcus Vosky, that you also know, I guess, about how I really troubles finding a good job, because after university I had studied journalism and literature, and of course you can't really get good jobs with that these days because it's badly paid. It's not paid at all sometimes. So you just for some years I worked in a bakery, in a casino, and just doing some tiny jobs here and there, and then additionally some writing. And luckily I had mentioned that situation to him a couple of times, and we were chatting, and apparently he had kept this in the back of his mind, because at that time Nuclear Blast had just signed In Flames, Paradise Lost, and Opeth all at the same time, and they desperately needed someone. So he just asked me if I wanted to join, and of course I was. So I had to move to the south of Germany here, but it was worth it. I never regretted that decision.
So what does a product manager at Nuclear Blast do? Like, what exactly do you do?
I kind of coordinate all the processes. So if a band delivers their master, I take it, I make sure that the music is there, I make sure that the artwork is there, the photos, so everything that you basically need, all these sets. And then I talk to the production team, I talk to the promo team, and make sure that everyone gets started to work on that band. And for a couple of months I just coordinate everything. But at the moment I'm still involved in the PR department a little bit, as I used to be before. So I just kind of enjoy doing different things every here and there. So
whatever they put on your plate, right?
Basically, yes. But officially I'm just coordinating what's coming in, and we'll see how that goes. I just started that position as well.
So it's exciting times for you to be back, because I know you left for a little while and now you're back at Nuclear Blast. Familiar people, familiar grounds, familiar bands. It must be nice for you to, it's almost like a returning home, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. I really missed my bands. I think that was one of the main parts where especially I had left shortly before Paradise Lost promo started, and they're really among my favorite bands, and I was so sad to not be involved in that process this time. And I've still been in touch with lots of bands. but now it's so good to have Dimmu Borgir back, Alcest, and just Cellar Darling. Yeah, all the guys that I just really missed. Yeah.
And you know what? I'm sure they missed you because every time I talk to bands that worked with you in the past, everybody always has something good to say about you. So I
Oh,
think all of them are really happy to see you back, part of the Nuclear Blast family.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
that means a lot, definitely. Yeah, it's something that you do because you love it and not because you have to. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
makes a huge difference. I mean, you're one of the lucky people that gets to get up in the morning and do something you love, not just going out and having to do something just to earn a paycheck and pay the bills. I mean, that happens too, and it's important. You need to pay the
yeah,
bills,
yeah,
but it's also nice to be able to do something that you really love and you really enjoy.
yeah, definitely. Especially since I've done other things, as mentioned before. It makes such a difference to just get up in the morning and be happy with what you do. I mean, it's stressful, not gonna lie, but in the end, you go home and they feel like, yeah, cool, I got to work with my favorite artists, and I mean, you do it too here, so I guess you know what it means, and it's just the best thing ever.
Yeah, it kind of blows your mind sometimes that, especially when an album comes out and you listen to it, and you're not just listening to the music. Now you know the people who made the music, and by talking to them, you know a little bit more about what went into making that music. It almost makes the connection between you and the band and the music a lot stronger.
Yes, yes, I was always afraid that I would be a bit disillusioned by meeting my favorite bands, but no, actually not. It's still great when I go and see their shows, when I get to meet them, and I'm still like that little teenage girl who's super excited. And I hope it stays like that because that's what keeps us alive in a way. And it's yeah.
What was the first big band when you joined Nuclear Blast? What was the first big band that you had to work with directly?
I was literally thrown into cold water. My first bands that I had were Opeth and In Flames. And I remember back then, I think in my second or third month, I had to organize like some sort of listening session in Helsinki for Nightwish for their DVD back then. And I was completely new to the entire thing, and I was so afraid. But yeah, luckily it worked out. So, but I kind of like being challenged and just here, work your way. Yeah,
Thrown into the wolves.
basically, yes.
Is there any band that you've worked with that your views on the band have changed to on a positive side? Like perhaps you had a preconception of one thing, and then after working with the band, after meeting the guys, your views on the band have changed completely. I'm not necessarily saying that you didn't like their music and now you like the music, but your personal perception of how they are changed since you've worked with them.
It's a bit a genre thing for me as well. I remember when I joined Nuclear Blast, I wasn't a big fan of prog or doom metal, but especially the doom metal bands, they're really relaxed and super easy to work with. For example, Avatarium, they were amazing guys. I just loved them. But I remember when I joined, I didn't know their music very well, to be perfectly honest. So that was quite a surprise. Same for Candlemass. Well, I never officially worked with Candlemass, but with Leif, who had his side project on our label, and who also is involved in Avatarium. And what else? Yeah, Opeth as well. At the time, I didn't know that much about them, and didn't know much about prog at all. But that just grew on me a bit within the last years.
Yeah.
Luckily.
Yeah, I mean, those are some incredible bands, and I'm sure when you first got to meet them, you were a little bit nervous.
Yes. I guess you always are with bands in a way, because when you don't know them, like I think you're always afraid that they maybe act like divas or that they're difficult to handle. But most of the time, it was super relaxed and easy. So I really can't complain.
Let me ask you this, because I had that same thought. Like when I started doing the interviews on the channel, or going to the shows to meet the bands and do the interviews in person, I always started off with the point that, oh, like I have to act a certain way because maybe those are, like you put the band in the pedestal. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're gods. They're like metal gods, and you put them in
Yeah.
a pedestal, and that was kind of my view. I've with my experience now over the last couple of years, I have a feeling like the bigger the band, the more down to earth they are, and sometimes
Yeah.
the smaller the band, the bigger the ego. Do you have a similar experience?
Yes, absolutely. I never had any problems with super big bands, to be honest. Um, Smaller bands, well, most of them, at least when they get freshly signed, they're usually quite humble, and they're happy to see what's happening around them, and that you try to take care of them and just try to push them a little bit. But it's more like the middle-sized bands that sometimes are trickier, in my opinion, because they are used to a certain level, but sometimes maybe they don't sell that much anymore, and then they don't have the marketing budget, for example, and yeah, they've been a bit spoiled, and then see that it's not going their way anymore, and then they get a little bit grumpy. But yeah, that happens too.
I can totally see that happening. That's exactly the experience that I have personally. I always felt that way. Like some of the bigger bands, when you meet them in person or when you're chatting with them, they're super friendly. They're so helpful. They're so humble, and that was not necessarily the experience, at least that I thought going in. Like I was expecting them to be divas. You know what I mean? Like, like who's this guy? Just sit over there. You can wait. You know what I mean? Like. And that's not the attitude at all. It's always like, hey, do you want anything to drink? Are you hungry? Take your time setting things up. Like, I was really blown away by how laid back some of these big bands are. They're not really the divas that a lot of people think that perhaps they are.
Yes, definitely. I remember the first time I met Traumas from Nightwish. I was like, and but always also super afraid that the whole image that I had of him would just
Crumble.
yeah, but not at all. I mean, he's so humble and just so relaxed. But I guess yeah, for the super big bands, they've worked their way up. They know how it is to really work hard, and probably also be treated like shit sometimes. I don't know. They've done tours in their little van, and just slowly moved their way up. So probably that's why they still know how things work. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, there's always a fear because you grew up idolizing certain bands, like you mentioned, Paradise Lost. Growing up, they were one of my favorite bands. Like they really influenced my taste in music. Them, Sepultura, bands like that.
Mm,
So when you get a chance to meet those guys, there's always that fear that because you have an image of who they are in your mind, because you've been listening to them for such a long period of time, that you don't want that image to be ruined. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So there's always that fear, like, oh, I hope they're perfect. I hope they don't sneeze, they don't do anything. You know what I mean? They dress perfectly. Everybody's perfect. So there's always that in the back of your mind, I think.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, for Paradise Lost, it was the same for me. I was so afraid when I met them the first time. Um, Especially because I think some person once told me, "Oh, they're super weird and super arrogant." Until I noticed, you just need to understand their sense of humor. They're the best people in the world, really, but you need to understand that British dry humor. That's a bit evil, actually, very ironic, sarcastic, and super weird. I think if you're not used to it, it might be a bit bizarre, but. Yeah, as soon as you understand it, I don't know if you ever checked out Nick Holmes' Twitter. It's hilarious, and
Yeah,
as long
his
as
Twitter
you share
is
that sense of humor, it's
yeah,
perfect.
I follow him on Twitter, and I love reading it because I find it so dry but so sarcastic, and that's pretty much the way I am. I'm that way too with the way I joke around. I'm always very sarcastic, so
Yeah.
I totally get it, and I love that way. It's almost like a passive aggressive way of being funny. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
that's it.
And I love that. I love that it's like you can almost tell somebody off without telling them off, just like with a smile, and I love that. I think it's pure genius. It's very non-confrontational. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that. Is there some highlights for you in terms of maybe highlights and lowlights since you've been working with Nuclear Blast and with bands? Is there anything that sticks in your mind, like perhaps one of the low points that you wish that it never happened, and one of the highlights that you will never forget?
Ooh, I think. Oh God, that's difficult. I think one of the nicest things that ever happened to me. It's a super small thing, but I really loved it. I really adore the Dimmu Borgir guys, and good friends with them as well. So I think it was when the last album came out, we had lots of discussions about the singles, and the band had different opinion than I had, and but they always knew that I had this little favorite song on the album. It didn't turn out to be a single, so I was a bit disappointed, but okay, I could understand their point of not choosing it. So I remember on the first tour that they did with the album, they didn't play the song, and I was, but then on the second tour, I remember they just started playing it, I think on the summer festivals, whatever. But when I met Dimmu at Summer Breeze, actually, after the show, Silenos, their guitar player, came up to me and said, when I played the first chord of this song, I was thinking of you. And so just the thought of one person standing in front of 30,000 people and having me in the back of their mind was just so nice. Yeah, and then low times, well, I did have some troubles last year where I was just a little bit burned out. We had lots of changes to the people that worked in our department, and yeah, I still miss them, but yeah, still happy that Florian and Philip, they're at Summer Breeze, and that
Yeah,
they're
I miss
happy.
these guys
So
too.
yeah.
I mean, I still get to talk to them, not just because they're working at Summer Breeze, but you know, I stay in touch with them. Me and Philip, I think we talk almost every day on Facebook. We message each other either about a song that he heard or I heard, or most of the time it has something to do with Ensiferum.
That's what I just wanted to say, actually. So do you always discuss Ensiferum or just send each other songs or something like that? Yes. You should invite him to a reaction video about Ensiferum. So you just watch the new video together.
Yeah, you know what? I think what we need to do is the next time. Well, it was supposed to happen this summer. We were supposed to come to Summer Breeze, but now obviously nothing is happening. So it's going to happen in 2021. So maybe in 2021, when we're at Summer Breeze, I'll sit down with him and we'll have him on one of our reaction videos. We'll do an Ensiferum reaction video with him.
Yes.
Because I think that would be really cool. I call him the German Patrick Swayze, because he has that look to him, a little bit Swayze-like. I don't know if he appreciates it or not, but to me, he's the German Patrick Swayze anyways.
We always used to call him Barney, like the guy from Napalm Death.
Yes, he does.
Right?
I agree. I never thought about that. That's a very good one. That's a very good one. He does look like Barney from Napalm Death. Yes. I think it's the hair.
So sorry, Philip. Love you.
He's gonna hate us for this, but anyways, it doesn't matter. He can't do anything. He can't do anything. Yeah, but I miss those guys as well, and it was really sad to see you leave last year when you announced that you were leaving. So I was really happy to see you coming back to Nuclear Blast. It's always nice to have a familiar face, and something that I always enjoyed. I don't like to say working with, because first of all, I don't get paid. And second of all, it's just a hobby for me, but I really enjoy our chats, our conversations, and you've always been super helpful when it came to set up interviews and bands and things like that. So it's very nice to have you back. And on that note, let me ask you this. When people find out that you work for Nuclear Blast, how many people give you demo tapes?
I don't get any physical ones, like here's a CD, rarely, but I get tons of Facebook messages, actually. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's super weird. People send you a friend request and then just send you tons of YouTube links to their band. Yeah, I think you were the one who once wrote like this is the dick pic of Facebook bands just sending unsolicited links. Yeah, no, but I mean it's always nice to hear new bands. So I'm not saying I don't want to see or hear their music. Absolutely not. It's just that
It's not the right
I
approach.
would appreciate if they just send it to my email address, because that way I can easily forward it to our A&R. While on Facebook, it's just like, yeah, what am I gonna do with it? I would always have to copy it out, and then
Plus,
yeah,
it's your personal Facebook page, really. It's not like it's not really work related, you know?
yeah, that as well. Well, I mean, I kind of mix it up every now and then and just post some band stuff as well there, of course. But
I always thought that it would be tough for you guys. Like you must get like stuff coming your way all the time. Like, you know, people sending you links, like you said, all of that kind of stuff. What's the best way for a band? And since we're talking about that, like maybe sending you links on Facebook is not the right way to go about it. For a band out there that feels like they have talent, and I have to say feels, because just because they think they have talent doesn't mean they do.
well,
So, I mean, you know, like seriously, some people sometimes think too highly of themselves, you know, like, and that goes for me as well. Sometimes I do that as well. So, but for bands out there that really think they have what it takes, what's the best way for a band these days to get noticed by a label, and not necessarily Nuclear Blast, but by a label in general?
in general, I have to say that most of the time it doesn't really happen through applications and sending demos. It's more like if a band works hard, if they play lots of shows, if they're present in the media, and just if they're getting noticed somehow, then they will also get noticed by a label, definitely. But of course, that doesn't. I don't say don't send any demos to labels, because sometimes, of course, that works as well. But just yeah, as I am not an A&R, I would say just go on the label's homepage, try to find the right person, and send an email or a letter or whatever to them. But yeah, present yourself, write a little PDF file with some info about you, include a little picture, maybe the artwork if you already have it, and then just like 2 or 3 demo songs, and that's it. Yeah, but of course it also just helps if you're on festivals, if you talk to people. So if you're kind of building your own network around yourself, I think that is actually the best way. But I know that it's not easy, so it's easier said than done.
Yeah, I hear you. And I've been critical on the channel because every Monday we check out bands that are either unsigned or that, you know, are starting up, or that they don't have a lot of following, because we want to give a little bit of a platform for those bands to get some exposure. So we do that every Monday. And sometimes we get some really good jams. Like we get some bands that are like, wow, man, these guys like spot on, like really good material. And then we get some that are just like, wow, did they even hear this before they sent it? Like it's absolutely horrendous. So I always say this, that there's no such thing as first impression twice. You can only get the first impression once.
Yes.
Do you feel the same way, that it's important for a band, that especially if you want to get noticed, to perhaps work on your material until is ready to be out there? Because once you put something out there and it's not really ready to be out there, people will not give you a second chance ever again, even if the other material ends up being good.
Absolutely, yes. I think as soon as you heard the name once and you associate some negative feelings with it, may it be that they released a really terrible song that just wasn't mixed properly, or I don't know. I mean, these days everyone can just record an album in their living room, which is good in a way, because it also opens the platform to people that might not have the money in the beginning. To record and to go to a proper studio, but it also means, on the other hand, that the whole internet is flooded by music that isn't very thought through. So yeah, I guess in general, I would always say before releasing 20 demo versions of the song, just wait, just work on it properly, take your time. Yeah. also get a good presentation. That's also so important, like some good artwork, some good photos, because also when I research a band, I always go to their Facebook and just check how much do they post. Do they post something? And yeah, if they have just like some mobile phone pictures, then I'm thinking like, okay, maybe they don't take it seriously, which is okay. I mean, you can do it for fun. But yeah, of course, there's a difference between do I want to get signed to a label, or do I just want to do it to have fun with my pals, which is cool too.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I think if you want people to take you seriously, you have to take yourself seriously. Yeah, there's. I always say there's no such thing as kind of pregnant. Either you're pregnant or you're not pregnant. You can't be kinda pregnant. You know what I mean? So I think with bands it's kind of the same way. Either if that's the path you want to take, you have to be because one of the things I get sometimes is I say, oh, the mix was horrible. Like the vocals and the sound was all over the place. It was just horribly done. And then I get a reply from the band like, oh, we don't have a lot of money. We did with what we could. Okay, so then don't be mad at me that it's bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, I understand that you don't have the money. That's fine. But then you cannot also expect me to like something that's not done properly. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's terrible. It really takes so much money to get your career started and to do something properly, hire the right people. And I do understand that this can be a nightmare. But yeah. You also just have to, as I said before, ask yourself, what do you want to achieve? Do you just want to do it for yourself and have fun? Or do you really want a career? Which is usually a bad idea because it doesn't pay well, let's be honest. But no, but I think if you work hard and if you really have your vision, then just do it and take your time. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because when I started doing the videos and when I started doing the YouTube thing, one of the preconceptions that I had is that the people in the different labels are like different war groups. So like the people at Nuclear Blast absolutely hate the people at Napalm Records. The people at Napalm Records absolutely hate the people at Season of Mist, and vice versa. And everybody's fighting for world supremacy. We want to be number. Like I had this vision in my mind that when you guys get together, like at a festival, and you walk by each other, you give each other like a weird look, like what the hell is he doing here? You know what I mean? Like that was the thing in my mind, because I thought, everybody has a product, everybody wants to sell their product. So if the other guy is selling a better product, you want to get that better product, and there was this internal warfare between labels. Then the more I got working on the channel, the more I got to meet people like yourself, the more I realized that everybody's really friendly with everybody. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody, super friendly. Like you guys, like we were talking about Philip, like he'll listen to releases even when he was working at Nuclear Blast. He would send me a message say, hey, this band is coming out with this album. You got to check it out. I'm like, wow, they're not even on your label. And he goes, yeah, it doesn't matter. They're amazing. Go check them out. So that really blew me away. I was not expecting that from an outsider. That's not the vision that I had. How do you see it being on the inside? Is it all a big family?
Kind of, yes. The world is very small, so sometimes you happen to have people working at Nuclear Blast, and a year later they work at Century Media, or vice versa. So you kind of need to learn that you're in this together. And usually when I meet other people, like the Season of Mist girls, for example, we always have our cocktails at the Summer Breeze. That's amazing. But also the Century Media guys, I like them. It's always nice to have a beer with them. And I mean, it happens that sometimes you have people that you don't like, but that doesn't have to do with the metal scene. That's just like that in every part of the world. So, but most of the time, yeah, you always meet twice. You always meet 20 times sometimes, and we just try to be friendly. And yeah, it's not like a massive Braveheart Viking thing where we just run against each other.
That's exactly how I picture it. That's exactly. I thought it would be like you would be in the front lines giving the speech. Like they may take our band, but they'll never take our top spot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a way, of course, we're concurrents. Especially, I think the A&Rs, they sometimes have that problem that A&R number one wants to have that band and A&R number two as well. So they fight and they fight and they fight, and at the end, one wins. But I think at the end, on the summer festivals, they still just hang out and have a beer together and laugh about it. Because, yeah, you have to take it seriously, and sometimes I guess you're very frustrated, but still, it's just a job.
Yeah. I'm happy it is that way. I honestly am. It makes my life a lot easier as well. And I think I've noticed that there's a lot of cross-pollination, people working on one label then end up at another label, then another label. And so
Yeah.
I think it's important that it's this big world, but it's a small world at the same. It's a big world, a small world inside of that big world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because you end up seeing the same faces over and over again in different roles in different places. And I feel like if you start burning bridges, you're going to really become not in a small world. You're going to end up in an island, all by yourself. I think that's what's going to end up happening. But I want to change things up a little bit. You also do photography. You do a lot of photography, and you're really good at photography. And I wanted to ask you, how did you get into photography? Was that something that started after you started working at Nuclear Blast, or were you doing some photography before?
I think I started when I was a journalist, also with some concert photos. I think I just tried it on the summer festival once, and I mean, my photos were shit at the beginning, obviously, but yeah, I just slowly started doing it, and then I noticed that like portrait photography is something that intrigues me a little more than just a concert. And I slowly started to get in there. I mean, unpaid, of course, and just for fun. And yeah, I mean, I soon started to notice that it's very hard to make your own special thing. That's why I always edit my photos in a quite specific way, and some may like it, some may not. But I'm, to be honest, not a very good concert photographer. So my photos usually, when they come out of the camera, they look kind of boring. I don't have the talent to really capture super good movements and like other people do. So I thought, like, I just need to do something to lift me up a little bit, And that's why I just started to play around with Photoshop, and I never really followed any path there. I just tried and see where I ended up. I'm still not sure what exactly I'm doing. I just do it and hope for the best, basically. It's like cooking.
Well, I don't know anything about either because I'm horrible at both. So I'm not about to give you any advice. You prefer to do the promo shots? Like I know you did the ones for Paradise Lost. You've done stuff with Opeth, Dimmu Borgir as well. I've seen a lot of your stuff. Do you prefer to do those promo shots either for the album release or actually for the album material, or do you still enjoy doing the live concert footage coverage?
Both is fun, and I think the mixture of doing both is the key. But I do prefer portraits, definitely, at the promo shots, because that's something where you can really spend hours and hours on one photo and just do your little details and create your little world. And yeah, I just really enjoy doing that. Plus, it's kind of special, of course, if you have the chance to really meet up with your favorite band and take photos of them and then hope that they like it as well.
Yeah, and get to use it.
Yeah.
Is there been a time that you had to struggle with when you're doing those band photos for like their press releases? Is there like a one incident where you really felt like perhaps you were out of your pond, if you will?
Not that much. I mean, there are moments where you, for example,
when you feel comfortable. Do the bands make you feel comfortable?
Yes, normally yes. I mean, sometimes you have some that don't really like being taken on photos, but it's okay. It's more like like for example, now during the COVID situation, I had so much cancellations, so many photo shoots that just couldn't take place, and weren't rescheduled so far. So yeah, within the last month, I didn't do anything, and I kind of feel like that my brain was also a bit off, and that I didn't feel very inspired to do anything. So I really hope that changes again once life starts to
Yeah,
get
looks
back
like
to
a normal.
normal. But yeah, I think in general, they don't really have any. No, so sometimes you have some ideas for a shooting and you present them to the band, and the band is just like, no. Okay, but yeah, at the end
That's
of the
so
day,
too.
it's their shooting, it's their photos, so I'm gonna do what they want to.
Because that was going to be my next question. Do the bands give you freedom to go where you want to go with the photo shoot, or there's a little bit of both? Some bands give you a little bit more freedom. Some bands have an idea of what they want, and they just kind of want you to execute that idea.
Uh, it depends. I mean, by now, I think bands kind of know what they get when they hire me, so it's not that much of a discussion anymore. So I guess if they want normal photos that are not that heavily edited, they would just pick a different photographer, which is fine. But yeah, how was it? I remember for Immortal, it was quite tricky because they really wanted that strict black and white, like super old school 90s, the typical Immortal look. And that
Yeah,
was
I mean,
really
it goes
difficult
with
for
them. I mean,
me.
I don't think you could pull off an Immortal photo shoot with photos that are heavily edited. Then it's not Immortal anymore.
Yeah. Well, actually, I tried well, I submitted some suggestions, and at first they liked it, but then like on 2 days later, they said, no, we really need to get back to our typical photo look. And of course, then in these cases, you just have to do what the band wants. But normally, I think the last time it was quite easy. Paradise Lost didn't have any special wishes. We started to have some ideas beforehand, and I just presented a concept to them, and they were okay with it. Same for Harakiri for the Sky, they were super easy. And other shots, they're usually just taken backstage when I'm going to see one of my bands. And I just ask them like, hey, do you have like 20 seconds to take a little shot before you go on stage in your stage clothes? And then we just get it done. And that's it. So yeah, of course, that's usually not an official promo shot, and I can more or less do what I want with them, or at least I didn't get any complaints so far.
I think you get away with a lot. I don't see a lot of the bands complaining about you taking their photos. Now, for some of these, do you have to travel to where they are, or how does it work? For example, let's say you're doing a promo with Paradise Lost. The guys for the most part they're in the UK, with Valtteri
Yeah.
being the exception. So do you have to travel? Do you have to travel there?
Yeah. If it's a real photo shooting, like we did really for the album promo, then yeah, I traveled to Leeds. It was quite difficult actually because we don't have any direct flights there. So I flew to London and then had to take the train up there, and it took ages. Plus, it was a time when there were lots of storms in Europe. And I was so afraid that my flight would get cancelled. And yeah, I started to get quite religious at during these times. I thought, oh my God, this will be so horrible if I can't shoot Paradise Lost just because of the weather. But yeah, there I traveled to England. Then I think 2 weeks after I traveled to Austria. But sometimes you just have the possibility to shoot bands while they're on tour and just do it backstage. But yeah, that's usually the small package. The better is, of course, when you can go somewhere outside and just take a couple of hours to really get everything straight and not just like run.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Is the photo side of your career and of your life something that you want to continue to pursue, and perhaps maybe someday would that be something you would want to do full time, or you always want to have the music side of things being part of your life? I mean, this is also music, but it's a different side of the business.
I think I need both actually to keep me happy, because I'm the kind of person that always just needs different tasks in their life to just, don't get bored. But yeah, what I really like is I can do it on the weekends for the photos, for example, or in the evening, and then work full time at Nuclear Blast, and it kind of lives from one another. So I get to meet the bands at Nuclear Blast, and then when I'm lucky, they might hire me for a photo shoot later. While if I would be completely off, I think it gets a bit trickier, because you don't have that position anymore to be able to talk to bands and to be taken seriously, because I think, yeah, that's a bit like sending album demos to someone that you don't know. It's
On Facebook.
Yeah. If I just send, I don't know, a message to, who haven't I worked with, like Enziferum, for example, like, hey, here's my photo portfolio, check it out, and they'd be like, all right. So but this way I can just add the people on Facebook because I work with them, and it's not going to be creepy. Probably they see what I've done, and probably they like it. So I'm in a quite fortunate position that it just kind of works very well together.
Yeah, I think it's the firm will just hire Philip with a Polaroid camera for their next photo shoot.
Yeah, actually, I would love to have a Polaroid camera. I've seen some people walking around with it these days, and I really like the color of the photos. They look very specific. I love that.
Yeah, it has a little bit of a retro feel to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. I'm not a professional photographer, but I really appreciate those more old school style pictures. It's almost like a dying art these days. Everything has gone so digitally now that the old style of even like producing with film and getting the pictures done, all of that stuff is kind of, I feel like it's almost dying out. Everything going so digital, everything going smaller and smaller and easier to transport. Like I know myself, when I go to shows, I actually use my Google Pixel phone for my pictures because the quality of the camera is outstanding, and I can really get good pictures without having to carry this huge camera with me.
Yeah.
Because I'm still a fan, right? So I'm still there to enjoy the show, but I'm also there to take some pictures and do some coverage. So it's kind of like I had to find like a happy medium where I can watch the show, still take pictures, and still have fun and try to get everything done at the same time.
Yeah.
It's tricky. It's tricky. I don't know about you guys in Europe, but here, some of the venues, when you have a photo pass, you're allowed to go in for 2 or 3 songs. And in some venues, they escort you out of the venue and they put you in a separate room. So you don't even get to watch the rest of the show. And I'm like, well, I want to watch the show.
Yeah. No, that's terrible. Even on the small shows where you're not forced to go out of the venue, but you still kind of, I enjoy being in the front row and really front row center and be there. It's the best thing ever. But of course, if I take photos and I'm in the pit, in the photo pit, then I can't get back to the front row. So you're always standing somewhere behind, and you always have to ask yourself, is it worth it? And sometimes when it's a band that I really love, then I always make sure that I go to several concerts, like one where I can just be the fan and one where I can take some photos. But it's difficult.
I remember one of my great memories from being in that situation, not knowing which one to do, was Sabaton last year when they came to North America, because we had the passes, we had the access passes from Sabaton. Tommy was kind enough to give us the passes, and Nuclear Blast was kind enough to set up an interview with the band. So I was telling my son, the two of us are at the show, okay, are we going to be at the front or are we going to go in the pit and take pictures? I mean, we can only do one or the other, because once we go into the pit, there's no way we're going to get a spot at the front. So he's like, oh, I want to be at the front. Come on, it's Sabaton. We have to be at the front. All right. So we were right at the front, right in front of Tommy. And then their tour manager saw us there. So he came over, he grabbed our camera, and he went and he filmed behind the drum kit on stage. And he gave me the camera back, the phone back. So we actually got, the kind of footage that I wanted to get without having to lose that front row spot. I'll forever be grateful for him to do something.
Amazing.
Yeah, I got the best of both worlds. You know what I mean? I got all the behind the scenes stuff while they were playing, and I still got to be on the front. And I got to meet the guys, so that was a great day all around.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
I can't complain. That day was like my son was absolutely speechless. Every time one of the guys would walk into the venue and they would come over to say hi to us, he couldn't say a word. It's like Sabaton. He's like he could say it was when he saw Tom. He's like, dude, that's Tom. He's like frozen. He couldn't say two words. And I know he wanted a guitar pick. He could not even ask Tommy for a guitar pick. I had to ask Tommy for a guitar pick because he couldn't put two words together. He was absolutely frozen. So yeah, that's our little moment of not knowing what to do between being in the front or going into the pit. But anyways, I have one more question for you before I let you go. And once again, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today. And that question is, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Do you have a long-term goal plan set in mind, or are you just happy to go where the wind blows you?
A bit of both. For now, I just want to continue what I do in general. See where that product manager position takes me, and if I like it, or if I want to get back to the PR, or just kind of move my way through Nuclear Blast and just be a part of it. I still want to continue my photography though, because it keeps me happy, it keeps me relaxed a little bit, and there's still that awesome feeling of I want to get further, I want to explore it even more and see where it takes me. But I do like the fact of not really knowing what happens within the next years, and just because sometimes some opportunities pop up that you absolutely didn't expect. And yeah, then you're in a totally different ship.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Make sure you say hi to all the guys in the office, Leo, Marcus, everybody. Make sure you say hi to everybody for me. I love all of you guys at Nuclear Blast. You guys have been always so kind to me and to our channel. So I have a huge debt of gratitude to all of you that work in the office, that make the things happen behind the scenes, and that allow us to do what we do on our little corner of the internet. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to be on TV. I loved your channel since day one, basically, and since you first get in touch with us. And it's amazing to see you evolve and have the super big names on basically daily pop up on my newsfeed. It's crazy. So I don't know how you actually do it. Yeah, it's every day, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, keep doing what you do. I especially love that you're doing it with your son now. It's a super possibility for bonding, and
yeah, it's been quite a journey. And I just want you guys to know, not just Nuclear Blast, but since I'm talking to you, I just want you guys to know at Nuclear Blast that you guys have allowed us to do that, and I really appreciate that. I honestly, I don't take anything for granted. We're using music that it's not ours, and we're using videos that don't belong to us, and we appreciate you guys allowing us to do that, and beyond that, giving us the opportunity to go to shows, meet the bands, and then do the interviews. All of that to me is really appreciated, and I don't take it for granted at all. So I just want to pass that message along to all of you guys, that from the bottom of my heart, I really thank you for giving me an opportunity to spend time with my son.
Oh, yeah. And thank you for taking all the time and for doing this, for free, actually. But
it's fun. I do it because it's fun. It's my hobby. So I honestly, if it wasn't for this, I think I would go nuts. At least this gives me something to stay grounded, stay focused. And like I said, the most important thing is I get to spend time with my son, and I think that is payment enough for me.
Yeah. And you can adopt Philip for an Instagram interview. I'm sure that you can make that work.
Yeah, I think perhaps we need to put the paperwork in order to get Philip moved to Canada, and I think that would be tough. But I'll buy him over with a bunch of Insiferum T-shirts or something. I don't know.
Yes.
All right, and thank you very much for your time today. All the best. Stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll chat soon.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye.